All right, so let's finish this out since we got only a few minutes left.
So there we go. Now we know why.
No, you don't. Now you know that all of your assumptions now can line up with a single source story from Seymour Hersh, who should know better, in an editorial and propaganda screed, uneditorialized. I don't know how they do it. Unedited by a third party, anyways. Propaganda screed from Seymour Hersh, where he definitely has his thumb on the scale of the descriptives. Period. Even if he means well, Seymour Hersh is manipulating his readers on purpose. Anybody who reads it, especially after what I've shown you today, or reads anything like it, because again, most of these circumstances are going to come and go. But in your life, you're going to encounter things like this. And the only concerning ones, you'll be able to see the ones on the opposite side of the argument from where you normally would stand very easily. It's obvious when you see, the right wing saying, shall not be infringed, so that they can ignore well-regulated militia in the Second Amendment, right? We get that. That's them putting the thumb on the scale with their people and with you. You're just not going to buy it because you're already guarded against it. You've got that sensor between your conscious and your unconscious is on fucking guard for that kind of bullshit, as it should be. The problem is when it's someone that you may be sympathetic to, or somebody who actually has an argument that on one case was valuable, and then that's how they get you. Arguably, you could say that that's the entire methodology of the Young Turks. Young Turks' entire function is to shit on Republicans in a way that you're used to hearing, act all mad, get like, oh my God, these fucking animals, blah, 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 and talk like that about the beasts, and they're terrible, and they're fucking terrible. But then eventually, the hook is, don't vote. Don't bother. Everybody's part of the machine. There's no difference between the parties, two legs in the same pair of pants. Fucking, it's a waste of time. The establishment, Democrats, blah, 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 corporatists, blah, 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 the Illuminati, deep state, whatever those words are, just over the hill is a monster. Don't even bother to start hiking. Because that's the ultimate message. The rest of it, if it wasn't couched in shit that sounds right to you, you wouldn't even listen. And I hope that, by the way, you look at what I'm saying on the regular from that point of view. That obviously I'm not in a position where manipulating you does me any good. The only thing that keeps you guys coming back is that I'm right and that I'm entertaining, that I'm correct, that in my assessment, you can check my work. And while nobody's ever going to have 100% record, if your standard is higher than average, and much higher in some cases, then that should allow the viewer, somebody like you who's watching the show, to go, all right, I'm in good hands with this dude. And then it's my responsibility to continue that standard for my own good. It does not behoove me at any point to start selling you a raft of bullshit to manipulate you into my political leanings, because if you ever check my math and it turns out to be bullshit the way these guys are, I'm fucked. That ruins the, and even still, like, I'll give you an example. There is no Hunter Biden laptop. I'm comfortable saying that. Part of that statement is a challenge. I've never even... I know that I've never been to that guy's shop in Delaware. I've never met John Paul McIsaac in person. I've never met Rudy Giuliani. That's for fucking sure. And I've never met Donald Trump in person. And I've never met Hunter Biden. I've never met Joe either. I've never met any of those folks. I'm like trying to think of who the closest person to any of those folks I've run into, and they're all just other celebrities who also tangentially met them. I mean, it might as well be talking about Kevin Bacon. But I'm going on information that I've gathered like anybody else could, and then filtering it through my own logic filter and my ability to understand issues and my belief about, my concern about manipulation, which is probably one of my primary concerns. As a comedian over my entire life, I think comedians are bullshit detectors. When society finds itself in a cul-de-sac, a lot of times it will dig in rather than get the fuck out. If you go, you're wrong, they'll go, fuck you. We're happy in our wrongness. But if you can joke about it in a way that says, hey, we're all wrong sometimes. Come on, get back out here. Let's all walk down the road together. It's healthier. That's what comedy is for. To me, that's the purpose it serves. We all make the same mistakes. We all get baited into this stuff. It's okay. You're not broken. You're not wrong forever. You're temporarily mistaken. In the Bible, the word sin actually comes from the same. Comes from an archery term, but it's the same as sine wave, wavering. It just means you're off the mark a little. It doesn't mean you're evil. It means to sin is to be off the mark, and what gets you back on the mark is gentle correction, not an overt. We got to turn my life around. That kind of shit. Sometimes you just got to not do that thing anymore, right? So as we look at all these things, what I'm trying to do is present to you as best I can my humorous take on stuff, but at the same time helping you recognize this stuff doesn't just happen here. It's not just about Pate and fucking Kurt Metzger and Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand and that crowd. And when Tucker does it, we need to be aware of what they're saying because we're going to encounter other people who are going to be parroting what they say. So that's the usefulness of looking at those things. When we're looking at these guys, the reason we're looking at these guys is because this is to show you how you are being manipulated and your own empathy is being weaponized against you. They're using the fact that you care about human life genuinely to try and move you to a position that is in total violent disregard of human life. The fact that Pate repeatedly over this entire video uses the term cheap gas and belies a level of disregard for human life and cruelty that it is difficult to wrap my head around it. I find it, and this is just, everybody's got their, certain things that chip on their shoulder about certain things. And I've always had this thing about the argument that when things are cheaper, when they're less expensive, why are they less expensive? What's the actual cost? And oftentimes it's because a moral tax has lowered the price. That this fucker couldn't give a rat's ass about. Same thing with Kurt. They're so busy hating like this boogeyman of America that they have, by the way, that they live under the protection of, and they cuddle in its fucking pouch like a fucking kangaroo every night and sleep snugly next to its belly button, but at the same time it's a beast and horrible and it needs to be destroyed. It's cartoonish. But the wanton disregard for the actual cost of quote-unquote cheap Russian gas in this particular story and in the Seymour Hersh story is fucking disgusting. It is morally the stuff of Nazi camp guards. It is the Jim Jordan looking the other way when sexual assault is happening because it will cost him his job. If you have to look the other way or it will cost you your job, then the cost of your job is too much. The price you are paying to have that job is too high. And as somebody who has not worked for certain companies and not worked for certain clubs going forward, at much to the chagrin of my agents over the years, they know this. You corner my agent and get a brandy in him, he's going to bitch a little bit. My old one, I'm no longer with him, but he's going to bitch a little bit about what I wouldn't do. It's going to come up. We had multiple conversations about it. Clubs I won't play because I know they rip off the comics. Even if I was making more than those other comics were. Because that means my work is keeping that fucking place artificially afloat. that money costs too much. It's cheap and easy if you totally disregard any of the standards, of human decency. Yeah, it's cheap. And I guess if you don't believe in a soul or anything after this life or any kind of moral structure, if you're an atheist that's based on, intrinsic, you only got so much time here, you want to spend it well, whatever the moral base of your decisions is. If you don't have any of those things, then yeah, it's cheap. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great money if you can make it. But if any of that matters to you, it's abundantly clear that there is nothing cheap about Russian gas. Never has been. It's inexpensive, but only if you don't believe that the loss of human life is an expense. Sorry about the diatribe, but I gotta say, that's the chip on my shoulder. That's the stuff that like that. A few things like enrage me when I see it, and that's one of them. Is this idea that Russian gas is cheap, that Xinjiang cotton is cheap, that slavery is not a moral evil, but a method of lowering the financial costs of an item. That's what Aaron and Kurt and Jimmy and Russell Brand, that's what they're all arguing. And it's why I, as a Sinophiliac, somebody who loves Chinese culture and Chinese history, find the CCP to be a disgusting and evil entity, particular on the planet at this point. Not China in the abstract, but the CCP itself, the governing body with the PLA, the army underneath it that is not the army of China, it is the army of the CCP, which is why they can use it on the people if they want to. It's a terrible system. It's inhumane. It's grotesque. There's a total disregard for the worth of human life from the people running it. It's it and the current Russian and Iranian Khomeini structures are the three closest things to the axis of evil that exist on the planet right now because of what they do. Not because of who I am and my system's better than yours and blah, 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 but because of what they do. When my country does bad stuff, I want to call it out. It's why many people who watch this marched against the first Iraq war, much less the second one. It's why we voted the way we did. To get rid of those fuckers. It's why one of the biggest reasons I voted for Biden in particular was we're getting the fuck out of Afghanistan. He meant it. Trump ran on it. A bunch of people allegedly voted because he said so. Biden finally did it. Getting lead pipes out of communities will not just change the lives of the people living there right now, but for generations to come. It will change the trajectory of people's lives. That single thing alone will have a Jimmy Carter-like impact on the health and welfare of the American people that, and by the way, that in 2 generations, everybody will take for fucking granted. Everybody will go, oh yeah, we don't have lead pipes in this country. That's ridiculous. But it took him doing it. And that alone makes me a proud Biden voter. Not to mention just the regular function of infrastructure. Not to mention the fact that we are supporting Ukraine the way we are. There's a myriad of reasons. Because where things might get more monetarily expensive, at times, by the way, because over time, things prorate out. Things might be temporarily more expensive when you're fixing your roof. You might have to, if you have a leaky roof, you might have to take out a loan to fix the leak in your roof. But if you don't, The expense will be your entire fucking house. And being able to make those decisions while everybody's screaming at you about what kind of money we have right now, in those circumstances, without yelling at them and going, hey, fuckhead, if we don't fix the roof, we're all going to be sleeping in wet beds, and the fucking house is going to rot, and we're going to die of black mold. And just getting on with it, signing everybody on to get the kids around the dining room table. Everybody, hey guys, we're going to have to tighten our belts a little bit because there's a hole in the roof. Being able to have that conversation is valuable and important. Anyways, I'm ranting again because god damn it aggravates me. And yes, we can afford it. We more than anybody else. And we can't afford not to when it comes to infrastructure and those kind of things. We can't afford not to in terms of lowering the cost of prescription drugs, because if people don't have them and they don't take them on the regular, especially when it's something like diabetes or whatever, the ancillary costs of them, like the ongoing cost, the increasing cost of the disease as it progresses gets higher and higher and higher, and then it gets more expensive. You can mitigate those costs, 5-10 years down the line if people have regular access to insulin, for example, and don't have to chintz on it, and ultimately can, either if they can reverse their diabetes over time with health and exercise and better diet and blah, 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 or they can, hang on healthfully as long as possible because they don't have to worry about, missing injections because they're worried about making it stretch. And again, the idea that, cheap insulin in this particular case is too expensive for the country means that whoever's talking about that does not value the human lives that are impacted by the need for that insulin. This is too much for us to spend. Why? Because those people don't have value. Bit of a rant today. But it's disappointing when the Seymour Hershes of the world and the Dennis Kuciniches of the world and the progressives who pretend to believe in and want better for people are actually just in the business of running interference, not just for somebody who politically their system aligns with. We're not in the situation where it's the USSR and they still want a Soviet system of communism, and that's what they're really shooting for. That no longer exists there. Russia's a kleptocratic corporatist state of the highest order. There is no remnant of communism to salvage that alleged progressives would want to, like, if they fail, what chance does it all have? Like, and the reason, by the way, they're coming to Russia's defense in a way that they don't come to China's defense is because Chinese people are Chinese, whereas Russians are white. And a lot of these folks, Aaron, Jimmy, Russell, Kurt, all that crowd, want, the dream of communism to come from white Russians as opposed to Chinese people. That's why they link to it. It's their own weird racist need for it to exist, I suppose, for themselves. That's my opinion. Because I can't think of another reason why they're trying to salvage Russia. Because there's nothing to salvage there. What they do to people's freedoms, what they do to their own, what they produce in the world as far as chaos, violence, and pollution is far from zero sum. And maybe the best possible scenario is that these assholes defend Russia because they are afraid that Russia will blow us all up. But if that's really your motivation, are you really chuckling during your show on the regular? I don't think so. It's like Alex Jones and David Icke. If you really believe that lizard people ran the world or that the fucking Clintons had a body count, you're not going to eat the food open at a buffet at an anti-Clinton documentary. Because apparently, why wouldn't you think that one of the aliens were there wearing someone else's skin, spritzing it with some sort of poison? Whew. Love you guys. All right. Tomorrow I get to work on the show and during the day. Wish me luck. It may entail me buying some components for this computer. It might maybe something fritzed. Fritzing happens. Fritz occurs. We should have Fritz happens. It sounds a little German though. It sounds like something from the 30s. Tomorrow's show will be on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time, regular hour, and hopefully I'll get through more clips or whatever. But today I felt like was like I'm, hopefully not just a class in what other people say and what to guard yourself against when the opposite side says something, but when somebody who alleges to be on your side is obviously trying to use your own values as a control point, especially empathy and loyalty. Be on the lookout. And by the way, there's no shame in somebody being able to do it. Yeah, I'll end on this. There's no shame in somebody being able to make you feel bad, showing you, a video of something and you're like, that's terrible, because it is. And then filling your head with, that's terrible because, and then selling you the rest of this bullshit. Selling you their line after all this. By the way, thank you, John. And I'm glad you escaped New York. Bald Thanos, thank you. Hal needs a new Xbox. Yeah. Couple of bucks for the cause. Thank you, Real Bill. Appreciate it. And thank you, Poetess. GMB, super chat, buy computer stuff or give us a list. Larry Fig says, yeah, hail to Hal. Thank you. We got that one. I just want to make sure I covered the folks that were there today. So, don't let anybody weaponize your empathy. Don't hand over your logic and your ethics to an untrustworthy source who tries to point at something, make you feel bad, and then go, I can alleviate how you feel bad about this. Follow me down this dark path. Always be on the guard about that, because what the end result is not that they will have a hold of you forever. It will not end up that the Aaron Montes and the Jimmy Dores, will make people pro-Russian, faux-aggressive lefties for life. What it does result in, ultimately, is nihilism. After a while, you don't give a fuck anymore. And then it's mission accomplished. The goal is not to make you care about an alternative. The goal is to make you not care at all.